Now we go into during 1869 and 70, the First Vatican Council, one of the biggest councils the church has ever gathered. Why was it gathered? Because of the surge of philosophy and surge of the promotion of the idea that you should not believe what you cannot reason out. And so the Pope at that time, Pope Pius IX, pointed out in his Syllabus of Errors the fact that not everything is within the realm of the human intellect. The human intellect is limited. There are far more beyond our intellect. So the Syllabus of Errors states that there is a primacy of faith, more of faith than of reason. But faith can be supported by your reason. Of course, I reason up. I know that I am limited, therefore, that's part of your reasoning. If I am limited, I must accept from the one who is not limited, whatever he says. Right? So that is reason. That supports your faith. Right? Okay. So that was what the Pope pointed out. Alright? At that time. The Syllabus of Errors. And that was the time when the church really defined what infallibility is all about. That is why you guys should listen to the church, because you know, man can come up with any kind of thinking that the devil or the enemy might sow in his mind. And you would think, and he would bloat your ego, he would bloat your pride, and you start claiming that you know everything. You know more than what the Pope is teaching. So the church demanded, hey, only the church has the authority to teach. Because only the church was appointed by God, by Christ himself, to continue teaching, to continue perpetuating himself to us. The extension of the incarnation of Christ, the church. So, the church defined for the first time what papal infallibility is all about. You know, Catholics, you invented infallibility in 1869. It was the only time during the First Vatican Council that you have this teaching about infallibility of the Pope. Wrong. It has always been the belief of the church. But it was pronounced more clearly and more formally during the First Vatican Council. Okay? But that has always been the teaching of the church. Papal infallibility. Then Pope Pius X came into the throne, came into the chair of Peter, and he, during his time, you know what? During his time, there were a lot of development in Italy, where the rulers noticed that the church owned so much in Italy. You know, the church owned practically the entire estate in Italy. So the church said, you must limit yourself to the spiritual things. So we will confiscate your properties. Give them all to the government. We will distribute them to the people. And that's what happened during the time of Pope Pius X. And then we have the wars, the World War. The First World War broke out during the time of the predecessor of our present Pope. Who is he? Pope Benedict XV. Our Pope now is Pope Benedict XVI. So, the predecessor was the Pope during the time of the First World War. And what was the policy of the church at that time? We're not taking sides. War. The church is always against war. We're not going to take sides as to who should prevail or not. Okay? Strict neutrality. Then, during the time of Pius XI, very important, the Italian government continued to seize church properties. And in fact, during the time of Mussolini, in 1922, Mussolini wanted to get every single property of the church. And so the church had to enter into a treaty with them. Come on now, we have given up almost everything. At least let us have our own headquarters, our state. So, at least let us keep the Vatican. That's why we have now the Vatican. Do you know the Vatican is an independent state? It's the smallest state. How big is the Vatican? Only 109 acres. I think Bill Gates owns more than that. That's the Vatican. Only 109 acres. And so the church said, okay, we surrender everything to the government. But let us keep our independence and let us just have the Vatican. Okay? And then Pope the 11th reminded all Catholics in the world, don't despair. The life of the church does not depend on its material possession. Because the life of the church depends on our spiritual possession. We still have our king. And the king is Christ. And he declared the feast of Christ the King. To remind the people that despite the fact that we are losing all our material possessions, we are not losing an inch from the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God is there. And Christ is the king of that kingdom. So we have the feast of Christ the King. So whenever you celebrate the feast of Christ the King, always think of this. What the church has given up in terms of material possessions, and yet possessed the wholeness of the spiritual kingdom of God. That's what Christ the King is all about. Then the Second World War. Who was the Pope at that time? Pope Pius XII. What happened during that time? Of course, Hitler was trying to annihilate all the Jews, and the church could not antagonize Hitler openly because it did not want to invite the ire of Hitler against the Catholics. So instead of rhetorics, wouldn't help, the church just did what it could in order to protect the Jews. They helped in hiding the Jews. They were feeding like 200,000 Jews at that time, every single day. Right? They hid them. And you know what? As a testimony to that, when Israel gained its independence in 1948, the very first decree issued by the state of Israel was what? A recognition of the magnanimity of the Catholic Church in helping the Jews during the Second World War. Well, they recognized that the church did help the Jews. But now, what do we see in the newspaper? Oh, Pope Pius XII did not have the guts to condemn Hitler. He had a reason for that. Okay. Otherwise, probably the next ones would be the annihilation of Catholics. So, what's the use? You can't stop that guy. He was a madman. And the Pope realized that. The only way we can do that is not rhetoric, useless. Let's just help these people that are being hunted. That's what the church did during that time.